Macmillan Audio presents The Pandora Room by Christopher Golden. Read for you by Amber Benson. One. Sophie Durand loved her work, but she didn't want to die for it. Today, the two desires had come into conflict, which would have been unsettling enough on any day, but was especially irritating given how otherwise perfect a morning it had been. A gust of hot wind billowed the awnings of shops and rustled the linen dresses hung out for tourists to peruse as they navigated the narrow market street of Amadea. Sophie felt beads of sweat run down the small of her back, but she ignored her discomfort, biting into a pear as she meandered, waiting for her colleagues to rejoin her. Despite the locals and a small handful of other tourists, she felt exposed and alone, and her gaze shifted left and right while she mentally calculated methods of self-defense that were close at hand. She'd noticed the first of the two men 20 minutes earlier, watching her from in front of one of the stalls in the open-air fruit and vegetable market. He'd made a small bit of theater, getting the seller to weigh a cluster of grapes, but she'd noticed the way he looked at her, not with benign curiosity or even lustful appraisal, but with disinterest so carefully blank that it caught her attention immediately. There seemed something surreptitious about his lack of expression, and when she caught him looking again, she decided to move on from the stall laden with oranges and forego any further fruits and vegetables for this visit. What she'd already acquired would have to be enough. Nearly 10 minutes passed before she'd seen the second man. At first, she'd assumed it to be the same person, but then she had realized there were two of these strange men with their mustaches and their sun-bleached linen shirts. They looked so alike they could have been twins whose mother had dressed them. Tourists, she had told herself, surely not locals. Their stiffness and their mode of dress set them apart, although something about that observation troubled Sophie. It niggled at the back of her mind, this assumption that they were tourists, but their glancing attentions bothered her more, and so she moved on, never mentioning to her two colleagues that she suspected the three of them were being followed. Paranoia, she thought, and she went about her business. She finished her pear, wrapped the core in a small cloth, and tucked it into the side pocket of her heavy rucksack before slinging it back over her shoulder. Sophie liked pockets. Her co-workers tended to tease her about the capri-style cargo pants she wore on the job, but she always argued that male designers had historically deprived women of pockets in their clothing, and in her line of work, she wanted as many as she could get. In one of those pockets, her phone vibrated against her thigh. Barely thinking, she drew it out and glanced at the message on the screen. "Are you really going to ignore me? Is that what it's come to?" Sophie rolled her eyes. She didn't have time for this nonsense, but she did feel a flash of guilt. With a glance around her, she tapped a quick reply. "Just stop, for both our sakes. I'm not coming back to NYC anytime soon." She kept the phone in her hand for a half-minute, expecting a response, but when she glanced at the screen again, there was not even the telltale ellipses to indicate a reply might be coming. Sophie felt frustrated for a moment and then realized that maybe she was getting precisely what she asked for. Exhaling, she slipped her phone back into her pocket and kept moving. The population of Amadea consisted of fewer than 5,000 souls. Tourists were as common a sight as birds flying overhead, but their numbers were smaller. A few dozen visited each day during the summer, no more than 100 in the cooler months. It was early June now and getting warmer by the day. Martin had gone off to the post office, and Lamar had stepped into a shop to see if he could find a little kit to fix his glasses. Sophie realized she'd nearly forgotten one of her vital errands for the day, and she ducked inside a shop to purchase several small jars of tahini that she had promised their cook. After she'd browsed the little shop and the merchant tallied up the cost of the nuts and figs and bottles of tahini, she glanced up and saw one of the mustache twins standing in front of a rack of various dried, bottled herbs. The man had his back to her.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?